to use Parse. And in setup, so how do you set up Parse in your project? You go to setup, you drag your files into your framework, go to build spaces, which I'm going to show you later, and then you import all this framework. And then you add this line to your prefix. This is all for setting up to use Parse. And then you put this line set up so that your application knows which app you're using for Parse. I'm going to show you how to do it.
Yeah, we're using Parse so that we can have backend services in our mobile applications, whether you're using iOS or Android. In this case, today we're talking about iOS, but you can also do it for Android.
Yeah,
So
it also works for
all
Android.
these libraries and frameworks so that we can work with them.
So this is the exact same thing that I had before. I set it up in front of you. So first of all, when you go to parse.com and create your own account, I'm not going to do that because I've done it. And then you go to your dashboard here. And the first time you're not going to have these things in here. You're going to have nothing. But I realized I forgot my password, so I couldn't delete these. But anyways, you say create new app. So I'm just going to create an example called Parse lecture example. Create app. And then see, here you get your application ID or your client key. But if you don't remember to do that, don't remember to copy it now, you can actually go to data browser. You're gonna be on this page a lot of time. And you can go to settings, and under here you can also get your application key. So as I said before, if you want to set up a project, you would have to first download the framework and put it inside your project. How do you do that? Well, downloads. Not working. SDK. And if you open it, shoot, which one is it? Yeah, then you're gonna get this parse.framework. And basically, what you do is, as I said there, you drag it into the framework folder, and I would say copy items to destination group folder, and then say finish. Then now you have your Parse framework here. And then what's the next step is to click in your project file, and as I said before, go to build phases, link binary with libraries. And in here you see your Parse framework is already added. Basically you have to add all the other ones that I listed, which includes, okay, I'm going to do it fast, audio for blocks, CF network, for graphics, for rotation, for yeah, this is boring, but I have to do it in order to show you. TZ and security framework and StoreKit system configuration. Okay. So now you've added all the framework. Can anyone tell me what's the next step? That I wrote on the board.
Add the prefix.
Exactly. So you go to supporting files, and if you go here, there's this prefix.pch, and just put it right after the other ones. So you say import.
Can you go into presentation mode for references?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Definitely. You just import parse.h, and essentially you're all set. But there's also one thing that you want to add over there that I wrote all over there is to go into your app delegate. Oh my god. Well. Oh. Okay. And then under application did finish launching, you add parse set application ID, And hopefully by now you know what a string is. So these two are just NS strings that are strings built in iOS, the way you declare it. And you just need to go to your app, application ID, and then add your application ID here, and then add your client ID here. And then you're basically all set. Yes. Basically, you're all set in terms of setting up your application with Parse. See? Isn't that easy? No, isn't that hard? So if you run it, well, probably nothing would happen just to run it for the sake of running it. So make sure that build is succeeded, and just go back to the Git thing. So this is kind of a step in your project that you've made. So you say source control, commit, add it, parse framework. Then I want to push it at the same time, so I commit. And wait. Boom. So now the repository has these files. Cool. So now we actually go into Parse.
Did you type the return yet, or did it just generate?
It's generated. So there are a lot to cover. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to make an example. We're going to do an example of having. I have a book list of databases. I have a database of a list of books that I have, and I let users to choose the books that I have, to choose the list of books in their account. So that is basically what we're going to do today for an example. So I have a list of books that I have, and I let people choose it. And then whenever they log in, they can see the list of books that they've chosen. So how does the database work? Well, normally they're in form of tables, and tables are basically like Excel sheets. You have columns, you have rows, and in today's example, we're going to use two tables. One is just user, and one is a table of books. And you can imagine for a user table, it's the kind of rows that you will have. Let's see. Kind of columns. Row is for each item in the table, and then you have this column. So for example, user, you will have a username, and your password, things like that. And then for each user you have in your system, you're going to have a new row. For example, username ABC, username BCD. And then for books, for the table of books, you also have a table. And what are some of the items that you guys can suggest that could have in their column? Like what kind of attributes, what kind of things that book can have? Anyone? Yeah.
Title, author.
Yeah, title, author. So I'm not going to go into many of them. So basically, I'm just going to put a name for now. Well, book name, book title. I was just book title. So I'm going to call it title. So basically, for the example that we're going to do, we're going to have a title for a book, and each user would have a list of books. Does that make sense? Okay. And each column can be a field of words, numbers, or it can also be a relation. So for example, in this case, a user would have a relation to many books that you have in the database. So these are the three main types of relation that you can have. You can have one-to-many, which means one class can have many students. Well, No, that's not an example. Oh, you have one thing that have a lot of different. Oh, you can have one. Well, yeah, a mom can have many children. Children, yeah. In that case, it would be a one-to-many relationship. Many-to-many would be a class can have a lot of students, and the students can have a lot of classes. And one-to-one is just if it's like, I don't know, one-to-one is like one-to-one relationship. So in this case, what kind of relationship do you think we're going to use? Many to many, yeah, exactly. Because one user can have many books, and one book can have a lot of users. So,
Wait, what are we doing now? Are we on iOS or still on Parse?
Parse is part of, well, we're using Parse on iOS. Parse is a framework.
Oh.
So it's like we're using Facebook on iPhone. So like one is on the other one. Okay, so I'm writing out a lot of things, but later on I'm gonna actually do it out on the computer. So register. You can actually find all these codes online. So for register, you first have to make a new user. Then how do you do that? You have to type in these codes. P@, user, and give a name, and do P@ user. If you've taken C++ before, then it should not be too bad. So, but this is a function that you call to make a new user. And then you have a pointer to a user. And you have to set the user password to some string that they type in there. And then also you have the username. And then after doing that, you have to sign out. So how do you sign out? You do user sign up in background. With log. And then here, what you do is, so I'm going to be really hand-wavy on this, but the code inside this block is going to be called when this function finishes running. So basically, you call this code and say, okay, I have this user, and I have these passwords, and I want to sign out. And I don't care what you do, but when you finish signing out, tell me if it's successful or not successful. And then this is like another function, and inside you have a boolean. It's either succeeded or not succeeded. So essentially what you can do here, you can say if succeeded is yes, then you do something. If you succeed at signing up, then do something. Or else, if it doesn't succeed, what do? Then you put it in the else clause. Can you guys see it? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Please ask, not feel free to, please. Because I know this is quite overwhelming.
So that covers registration?
That covers registration, just by that kind of line. Well, we used to have to do the user interface to actually use user interface to interact with the user, but that is the line of code that you need to register a new user. And then for logging in, it's even easier. All you have to do is pf user log in with username in background. And you have the username and password. And you have a block again. So block is basically, as I said before, it will call you when it's done doing something. So it will, well, accompany you with the block. It will have a boolean. It will have a pointer to the user. So essentially what you're doing here is you tell Parse to log in, and you give Parse a username. Again, this is an NS string that you get from the user, and this is an NS string from the user. What is the username? What's the password? And then you ask, okay, tell me when you're done logging in. And how do you know if the user has successfully logged in? You say if user, so this pointer is going to be null, it's going to be nothing if it's not successful. So you say if user, which means to check if the user exists. And here, so if the user exists, what do? And you do it here. And if the user doesn't exist or fails to log in, what do you do here? Usually, one way that you can do is when the user logs in, then you can direct them to the right page. And if the user doesn't log in, you can just show like fail to log in or anything like that.
I know a lot of you guys have like these nice registration pages that you're making for your apps, or if you haven't, now you know you can do it if you want to. So this is the code in the back end. It's not really that much. So it definitely
compared to like if you do it like all yourself, this is like really good.
So it's very powerful.
And how do you get appointed to the current user? You might be asking like, why do I need to do that? So for example, if you want to get the current user's books, the list of books of the current user, then you would just, so you first have to get a pointer to the current user. Then all you need to do is pf user, current user. Then by doing that, you get a pointer to the current user.
Yo, Akash?
Yeah. Is it hard to link up to Facebook? SDK?
Well, it's another SDK. So Parse is a framework.
No, but can't you use Facebook to identify the user and use it with Parse?
You can, and it's through the Parse on their end. You just input the APIs that Facebook gives you. It's a different
Maybe they have, so I guess according to what he said, that it's built in then.
But you do it from there.
So I would say normally what I do with Facebook SDK is I would actually use the Facebook SDK, but according to what he said, I guess Parse has built in SDK with Facebook. So what you have to do is you just need to use your code. I haven't looked into documentation yet. I'm sure it's going to be listed up because it's pretty common. So, yeah, we're using. I haven't used it yet, so I can't really give you an answer to that. That's to get a pointer to the current user. And how do you add a new row to the table? And new row on table. So for example, you want one more book, or for example, you want a new user. What you do is first you have a pointer, object, new object. This is just a variable name, so it's anything. It can be anything. Object is equal to pf object with class name. for example, you want to add a row to the books. Wait a sec. For example, if you want to add a row to books, then all you have to do is pf object, new object, pf object, object with class name, and put the word books in here. And this is all you have to do to add a row. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so that's adding a row to existing table.
Adding a row to this table on Parse.
Okay, and can you go over how like you can create a new table?
I'm going to do it. It's user interface. Like you just have to click things.
Oh,
It's
okay.
pretty. I'm going to show you.
Sounds good.
This is how to add a row to a table. And the tables, you just make it like an Excel sheet.
Okay.
So you'll be able, it's pretty intuitive. And then, but just by doing that, though, it's not enough. You just have to say, you have to add one more line to say that you want to save this object. So you have to call the object. So save in background. And then by doing these two lines, you can add a row to your books. So a lot of things, I mean, you're probably going to use this quite a lot because if you want to add an item to a table, for example, add an order for a company, like food order or any order, or add a student to a class. No, not that. Add a student to the database, actually, and you can use that. I'm really bad at coming up with examples in general, so sorry about that. And how do you get the value of a column? So, first of all, you need to have the pointer to that object. So, it's equal to something here. So, first you have to have an object, to have a pointer to the object. So, for example, let's say you have a book. You have a list of books. So, first of all, you have to point to the book object on that. So, basically, you're pointing to the row. And then, if you want to have the title of that book, then all you do is open brackets, and then put in title. This is generated using dictionary in iOS as well. Yeah, if you have a pointer to an object, and if you're going to get the object column title, then you just need to do that. And if you want to set it to something else, you just set equal to, I don't know, calc 1. Make sure So this is how you add a row. Make a new object, save it. And if you want to get a column of a specific row, so first you need to have a pointer to that row, and then you say whatever that column name at the beginning is, you use the syntax, and then you get the value of that specific cell. Okay, I have two more things I have to write on the board, and then I'm going to show you code. And then one big thing that you guys are going to use definitely is relation. So what is a relation? As I said before, there's one-to-many, many-to-many, one-to-one, or anything like that. To get a relation, you need to make a pointer, and then whatever the object is. When I say object is a specific row in any table. And if I have a pointer to an object of a specific row on the table, I do object relation for a key. Oh, actually, well, that's going to be easy. So I can just say object and then do the exact same thing. For example, books. So for example, I have an object. This object points to a row in the table. For example, user. I have a row of user, which means I have one single user pointing to that. And then I have this column called books, which is a relationship pointing to other books. And by doing that, I have a pointer to relationship. And if I want to get the object in that relationship, then I need to, whenever you want to get something, get some object from a database, you need to use pf query. In this case, it would be relation query, which means that you first change this relationship to a query, which means that I know that I have a relation, and I want to find all the objects in this relation. For example, you have a user and you have a relation to the books. If you get the relation of this user, then you can query it, which means that you ask for all the books for that relation. But this is still a pointer. How do you actually get it? You say query, find objects in background. And again, it's going to be a block, but here, this time you have an array. That is passed to you, which means that when it has found something, some object, it's going to call this function inside this block, and then it's going to give you an array. And that array would contain all the objects that you want for that relationship. So for example, I have a user, and it has a relation column that is called books, and then this books point to other relations, other books in the other table. If I want to get all the books for that particular user, I would call this line, and then change that relation to a query, and actually run the query. And then I can do anything with this with the array. The array would be the list of books of the user.
Question.
Yes.
How can you erase the top one? Is that supposed to be
Erase.
a PF object?
So
object
this one,
equals,
so this one is a pointer to an object. So right now I don't have an example. So basically, this is going to be pointing to a specific object. For example, this one can point to the current user. I mean, you can. It can be this one. It would be pointing to the current user. Then you can get the relation of the user as well. Well, that's the value. So you would get the value of the user, for example, username. Probably they won't let you get a password, but yeah. And then very last thing that I would have to write out before I actually demo would be to add or remove relation. For example, a user no longer wants to add the book to his list. Then what you do is first you would have a pointer to the relation, which is already done here. Then all you have to do is to call relation add object, add object, and then put the object inside here. For example, a book object, or relation remove object. Oh, make sure you also have to do object save, because if you don't save the object, it will not be updated online. So this is all I have for writing out. And let's take a 5-minute break. And after the break, I will actually show you how to use this code to write a program. Yay!
Have you looked at the parse yet? What? Everyone looks kind of dead. I'm kind of dead. How's you guys weekend so far?
Hey everybody, let's stop for a second. We have surveys for you to fill out. We're going to hand them out now. Give them to us on your way out, but just so you have some time to think about it, okay? But we really value your feedback, so to be honest, they're pretty short.
I got this, Jess.
I don't need your help. I'm just trying to help her out.
Hey, dude. Are there two in there?
Like, I don't know if you guys understand how powerful this stuff is.
Why don't you actually just write down the theory miller?
We're
Make sure you get started.
how to basically integrate
See, I didn't even see it. Not that I don't want to.
Because for this, you wouldn't have any data.
Oh yeah,
Anything in the back end and really good.
Alright, I'll just ask you right now, and
You can basically manage a lot of the same things. You know that part of dashboard? That's basically pre-managed over shit that you're getting. Like if you have an app in the App Store, you can see like all the people's fucking data or whatever.
Is the lab mic not happening? We're not worried about
There's a way to use it that makes sense, but
The time I came in actually was like this because he gave us,
you don't get
he asked
it.
the question, he gave us something about
You've nothing for yourself.
Okay, that's
the missed all the beginning part.
That's fine. That's fine. It was straightforward.
Yeah.
It was quick. It was only about 10 minutes because we started late. We were having
Like,
PGA trouble.
if we really wanted to, and I'm really sorry that
No, I totally understand.
we could ask him to do like a 20-second version. It does look a little bit. So I'd be worth it.
I don't think so. I think Git is something that actually you could have. Yeah, it needs a whole lecture. He did a good job summarizing it.
Yeah.
I think a post like a PDF would actually be really helpful for that. We might have two for this lecture.
Okay.
That's what I'm
I can help
thinking.
you work on that.
But
I get too happy every
Git
time.
is it's straightforward. It's just it applying to Xcode or whatever else. So yeah.
So you showed it in Xcode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Jen, if you could pass
Did a
that
great job
down.
summarizing. That was good. Of course, it would have been. I don't know how valuable taking a video would have been, anyways.
Oh my god.
I'm kind of confused by a lot of things in while developing apps because there's quite a lot of things like app names,
Oh yeah, here
company
goes.
names, job titles. So I kind of forced that one. I'm not sure if I actually don't know for the job name.
I don't know.
Also, what does Parse actually do?
So Parse is just it's this free service online, and it basically stores database type information for you. So if you have, what Tim is doing right now is he's having a login page where someone can sign in and then look at a list of books that they have, like that they liked from this database that has this list of books. Okay. I mean, as in there's a separate, so there's a table that has a list of users, and then there's this table of maybe it's for a library or something. They have a list of title and author for all these different books, like novels that they'd read or something like that, or textbooks.
Oh, that's an example.
So it's just absolutely just an example, and the point is that they can log in and see their information that's being pulled from this light database, which is all this is. Does that help?
Well, sort of, but I'm kind of wondering, how do you use this Parse thing? Because
Well, that's what Tim showed. I don't know. And there looks like there's great documentation for website stuff. So a lot of reading is going to help.
Yeah, no.
You did algorithms last night, Patrick.
Yeah.
How was the lab yesterday? Ended up being.
He wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
And so it ended up being useful because we were talking with these guys like about how we thought about the class.
Oh yeah. Was Owner there? I love Owner.
I don't know their names, but they're both there. So
Owner's the tall guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's in the
So we're
lab I
going to
work in.
continue.
He's really nice.
So this is the file that I had for as the same thing, and then I'm just going to quickly drag some UIV controllers. So the one on the top is going to be registration. The one on the bottom is going to be login. And once you log in, you will go to a UI table view. Then you can see the list of hooks that you have. And depending on how much time we have, we're going to maybe have one more view controller there. So I'm going to drag a button. I have to go in. As you see, you have this arrow here, which means that that's going to be the first page that you're going to see. And then I will add a button, call it register, and the other button, call it login. And hopefully by now you'll be able, you know how to like set up easy connections like that. Then if I want to go to register, I press this button, it will go to this page. I will use a push. But the thing is, remember that whenever you want to use a push, you will have to embed your controller inside navigation controller. And you also have login. If you go in and you drag, go here, you push again. So basically, essentially what you have here is you have this page, register, login. You have this main page, register, login, and if you want to register, just go there. And then if you want to log in, then it will pop this page. So let's just try it for now. So if I press register, it goes here, and then if I go login, it goes here. So you can't really tell if it's working or not. Anyways, then I'm just gonna drag like text field, UI text field. I'm gonna drag 3. I have to go in there. I have to just drag 3 text fields, one for username and one for password, and one for email. So I will put it in the placeholder username, password, and email. So when you line that out, and big. These are just a quick review of what we've done so far for the entire year, basically. So you have 3 text fields here, and then I want to add a button called register. And then I also want to have a label that basically tells what the status, whether the person succeeded in registration or not. So hopefully by now you'll know why I'm doing this thing that I'm going to do right now, which is to make the connections with a file. So whenever you want to control these elements, what you have to do is you go to File, New, File, and then under Objective-C class, you make a new controller. This is a view controller, so I change it to a UI view controller. Say create. Then now I have a file here, and then I also have a main storyboard here. But then to make a connection, I have to go. I have to choose a view controller, and under class, I would change it to register view controller. Now there's a connection between this storyboard view controller and the file. That's how you establish a connection. And if you want to make the connections with the buttons, though, you would have to press this button here, and another view pops up, which is this file is basically the same as this .h and .m file. And I would just make the connections here as we did before many times. Username field. And here I have a password field. And then here I have an email field. Let's see. And then I have a status label. And I also have a register button. Make sure that for a button, it's not an outlet, it's an action. Well, unless you want to change the shape of the register button. And I just call register user. So now we've basically we've actually already set up the main framework for the register view. So, as someone asked before, how do you actually set up a table? So you have to go to parse.com and you go to your dashboard, choose the one that you're using. In this case, it would be this one that you're using. And then under data browser, you can just say add new class. And actually, you lets you choose the different classes that you have. So for example, you will have users, obviously. And then one other one that we want to have in this example would be a book class. So you will see that the difference between user and book is that user there are more things, like you have email, verify email, and things like that. In book, you only have 3 things. These are default, and you can't delete them. And we want one more column for this class, which is what we talked about before. We said title. So why? So because it's going to be a word. Sorry. So there are different variable tags. You have number, boolean, date, file. In this case, we're going to choose string because it's a word. That's right, right? So if you press create, you'll see a new column here called title. So actually, if you want to manipulate your database, you can just add row, and I want to add calculus one. I just really like calculus. Oops. And calculus 2. So yeah, then I did not calculus. Okay, so you have these 2 calculus. So right now you have 2 books. So here I'm going to actually just show you an example of what it would be like if you were to add the relationship manually on the parse instead of on your application. So you say add row, and you probably would want to give it a username, JI, password, JI, email, JI@gmail.com. Yeah, then there you have your new object. But then one thing that we also talked about was you need a relation because one user can have different books. So you need to add a column, select a type. In that case, it would be a relation. And then they ask you what is the target class. So the relation would be targeting a book. Column name, I just call it books. Create column, and you have this new relation. And yeah, this is how you would do it on Parse, but obviously that's not usually what usually people do, so I'm just going to delete these and do it manually. Books, it's fine, you can create it here. The user, you would allow the user to register. So back to here. When the user presses the button register, it's going to call this function. And basically, you just have to put what I wrote out before, which in this case would be pf user is equal to pf user. See? Oh, equal pf user. So now you generate a new user. You say username.password is equal to self.password field.text. So basically, this line refers to the text, whatever is filled in the password field. And also you have to choose user.username is equal to self.username field.text. And then you have to, and then the same thing goes for email is equal to self.username email field.text. From doing that, you've created a user, and then you've set the username, password, and email of that user. Then you have to actually sign up. So how do you do that? You do user, sign up in the background with block. So I recommend using block, although a lot of professionals might argue with me, and they're probably right. Because this is the easiest that you can do for now. I mean, if you go into more detail, if you do more iOS, you might be more comfortable with other ones, but this is the easiest. People might find it messy sometimes. Anyways, so this function inside this block will be called when Parse has finished trying to sign up. So it will tell you whether it succeeded or not. So you can say if succeeded is equal to yes or true, whatever you want. So what would you want to do when it succeeded? So in this case, I just want to set the cell.status label.text. I just want to set it so that it says succeeded. Which means that if it succeeded, oh, by the way, these codes are going to be online, so don't panic too much. Then if it has succeeded signing up, then it will change the status label to succeeded. If not succeeded, then it's just going to say fail. I mean, obviously, for your application, you probably want to do a little more than that, but it's obviously up to you. So let's try it out. Register. You see those things coming up. Username, gai.com. Sounds good?
Wait, we already have it.
I deleted it. Deactivated it. Oh, well, in that case, it will still work, which is a fail, right? But I mean, I can try it. If I say register, do you see it? It's changed to succeeded. But you can see it's a little distorted because I didn't think of that. So it says succeeded here. Then if you go to your parts and if you hit refresh, you see you have this new row here saying GI. And then you say it doesn't show you the password because just for security's sake. And you might wonder, oh, what would happen if I register with the same password again? I can try. Whatever, because you have the same username, so it doesn't matter what it is. If you register, it's a fail, because you already have that user. And if you see under here, the console, it says error, user GI already taken. Just that you finish your register page. And you guys might want to polish a little, obviously. So after doing register, let's do a login. Same thing happens whenever you make a connection between a view controller with the view control with a file. You have to say, well, in this case, I will press the view controller. Oh, and say file, new, project. We've done this so many times. Log in, view controller. I'm just gonna pay. File, new, file. Objective C. Log in, view controller. Next, create. So you have two new login view controller. In order to make a connection, again, say it again and again and again. You have to go here, choose the view controller, choose the class, and change it to login. Choose the class, log in. He doesn't like it. Let's try again. Log. So sometimes you just have to restart it. Well, in that case, I would just. Okay, I'm going to close it and reopen it. But normally it will work. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's weird. Okay. So if you go here, log in, see, and now it shows up. Then once again, when you log in, what do? You drag UI text field. I wish it could be bigger, but I don't drag my text now. So, and then again, you have a username, password, and then you have a button to log in. Log in. Let me just call it username so that it's ready to look at. And you don't want to drag this and drag it here because you don't want it to, whenever people press login, you just go directly there. So what you can do is well, let's just set up the back end first. So once you've done these user interface that you can see the elements on the page, you would want to set up the connections. Then you go to you press this assistant view again, and then you make the connections. You would probably find it boring if you've done it before, but you always have it done it away. Username field, password field. Did I type it wrong? Yeah, I know. Action. I'm just gonna say login user. And then if you go to .m file of this thing, you close it, and you see this new function. I mean this one, login view.m. You can see this new function, login user. So basically, so whenever the user presses that button, this login user function is going to be called. So what do we put in this login thing? Exactly the same thing as I've written on board. So before I do that though, I want to be able to move to a new view controller from this page. I want to be able to move, if the login is successful, I want to go to this table view controller. So how do I do that? There are different ways of doing this. But the way that I would want to do this would, first of all, I need to make a new file. Should I go that far away? Make a new file. Again, set up connection with the view controller. I just call it, because this is a table view controller, I would have to change this to UI table view controller. And then I just call it book view controller. And then you have two new files. Inside main storyboard, you would have to again change your view controller here, change it to the file that you made. In this case will be book view controller. And because you want to push your, we've talked about this before when we talked about storyboard, but if we want to push our own segue, we will have to first make a storyboard ID for this. Let's call it book view controller. And then if I wanted to say, so right now this view here is going to have a story ID connected to it. So if we want to create it or push it manually inside the code, we would use this book view controller. I know this is a little hand-wavy, but we did talk about that before. And then under login view controller, I want to make a new function. Well, it means it's not going to return anything. I say go to book view controller. And under that, I would want to make a new book list controller. But first, before doing that, I would have to import the file of the other book view, because this file here doesn't know about the book view controller. So basically, you first need to tell this file saying, okay, I have this book view controller waiting for you, and if you want to use me, you would have to import me. So import book view controller. This might be confusing, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So if this function is going to be, when this function is called, I want it to go to book view controller. And this is just some syntactic thing where I'm not going to describe in detail, but here's basically what we would do if you want to push a view controller, push to a new view controller yourself inside of the code manually. You say self.storyboard instantiate view controller with identifier, and the identifier would be the one that we used before on the main storyboard. In this case, it would be book view controller, and then just copy and paste it here. And then all you have to do is self.navigation, push, and then put the navigation, put the view controller here, and animate it. I just want to say yes because I just wanted to animate. So basically what happens is when you press a button, what you want is you want to move to a book view controller when it has locked in. But however, that function is not actually implemented yet. So when you press a button, this function is going to be called. So what do you want to do here? As I wrote on the board, you have user login with username, password, and block. And then the username that we would put in would be self.username textfield.text, which is basically the text that the user types in. And then for the password, you would do the same thing, .text. So that you would pass in the username, the text typed in by the user, and the text typed in by the password to this function. And here's the block that they're going to call when it has tried to log in. And how do you check if the user has logged in normally, successfully? Then you just say if user is not equal to nil, which means there's a user here. So this is when it's successful, and here when it's not successful. So if it's successful, what do you want to do? Anyone? Go to the next screen. And as I wrote here, this is how you would want to go to the next screen. So basically, all you have to do is self and call the function. And if it's not successful, you can either have to do the same thing as before, where you have a status label and change that label. But just to show it as an example, you can also use a UI alert view. And this would be the syntax of it. Basically, you don't really need to know exactly what happens because you do it every time you want to use an alert view. You would do the exact same thing.
Is that supposed to be enabled?
Yes. Not supposed to start right.
So, and then you just have to go view, show. And this code, so quick recap. When the user presses a button, it goes to this function, and then you call this thing as I wrote before on the board, and you pass in the username and pass in the password, and then it will call you back when it's finished trying to sign in. And if the user is present, which means it's successfully logged in, then you just call the function to go to book view controller. But if it's not successful, you say, sorry, I'm unsuccessful. So one thing that I want to address is also that when you register, the system automatically lock you in, which makes sense. So what you can do is, at the beginning, whenever you enter this page, I just want to do a view did appear. This is just a syntax for how you would usually override a function. Then I would say, I would check if the current user, if there is a current user. If there is a current user, which means that the user is actually logged in already. Then if the user is logged in, then you probably don't want them to log in again because that's tedious for them. So what you can do is to check if that user is null or not. And if that user is not null, then I can just say self go to view controller directly. And I don't have to put an else because I don't want to do anything else. I just want to say on the same page if the user is not logged in. Yes?
So if you close an app, will the user stay logged in?
Normally, yes. Actually, I think you have to set it yourself, whether you want it or not. So I don't know the answer. I think it's no. But I'm pretty sure you can set Parse to do it so that it saves. Because normally you wouldn't want the user to log in every single time if it has logged in before. So if I press run, log in, oh, see, it's already logged in. Because I've logged in before. The annoying part is I can't go back out because I have not implemented this part to to actually log out. Well, anyways.
So you're logging.
Huh?
Like, nope, you're logged in.
Yeah, you're logged in. You're stuck in there.
You can't
get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in
So, first I want to make a push to this thing just to show that, so that this bar shows up here. And then right now I want to have the lockout button in this. Oops, it's not there. It doesn't want me to delete this.
Wow.
Okay. So I want to say lockout here. And again, if I want to control this, I will have to go to Assistant. We already set up the connections for this thing, like these ones. I just want to, no, this is not the right file. It's Book View Controller. Drag it here so that I can open it and look at it. And then I want to add this new function to lock out. Let's see. Go here. I'll just put it here. Call it locked out user. And I'm not sure if I wrote down the code for logging out user, but logging out user is also very easy. You just need one line of code. And in that case, it would be ps user lockout. That's it. And once you lock out, you obviously want to go back, navigation controller, pop, view controller, yes. Well, just a quick recap. Pushing is when you want to move to the right. Popping is when you go back to the previous page. So right now, when the user presses the lockout, they will actually log out, and it will not keep staying on that page. Like, it will not keep going back because you actually log out from the page. Say login, press logout, it doesn't go back. Wait, that's weird. Oh, I this prop to root. So because I said prop to root view controller, so it equals to very fun, but if you don't want it, you just want to go back to the login page, you just say prop view controller, and you're here. If I want to sign in, GAI, login, log out, now log out. We don't have much time, but I actually have much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can learn a lot more, but I feel like if we can have another Parse lecture at some other point after spring break or something. But this is a lot. You can do a lot with this, and basically go to parse.com/docs. And for those of you who want to learn more, there's a lot more stuff available there. And for the stuff that Tim went over today, that they have really good documentation for getting started. It's very beginner friendly. And you can start including that in your iOS or Android apps. Just go to parse.com.
And Tim?
Thanks for coming, guys. I know it was long. And